doing another book review since I'm just starting these and I've had a couple recent books I've completed. This one was an easy book to complete. It was very short, and it's a topic that people love to talk about: Christian Endgame. Careful Thinking About the End Times by Kenneth. It's a small book. As I turn it sideways, you can see not a lot going on there. So read it because it's a nice, short, simple read. But that's not the only reason to read it. I want to read the back of the book for you. It says, "It's the end of the world, or is it? Speculations about how and when the world will end abound. How can we separate sound biblical teaching from sensational movies and headlines?" That's a problem today, I think. Theologian and philosopher Kenneth Samples tackles this controversial topic and provides solid biblical teaching about future events, especially on those beliefs shared by Christians throughout the ages, no matter what their denominational perspective. And that is a fantastic paragraph there, or that last sentence there. Solid teaching about future events, especially those shared by all Christians, no matter what their denominational perspective. Ken's book, again, under 100 pages. Really about 80 pages. He's got 8 chapters. Chapter 1, Christ's Kingdom Already Not Yet. 2, End Time Speculation and Theological Accountability. 3, Mere Christian Eschatology. And this is really the key of Ken's book. It's kind of the way he presents himself, although I'm sure Ken holds to one of the views. Chapter 4, 3 Key Eschatological Differences. 5 is Millennium Models. 6 is Heaven and Hell. 7 is the believer's blessed hope. 8 is faithful citizenship in 2 kingdoms, with 3 appendices. Appendices A, 5 rules for Christian eschatology. Appendix B on dying well. I think they got a typo in the table of contents. Yeah, the chapter really is on dying well. The table of contents says on dying wall. W-A-L-L. That's a typo. Editors didn't catch it. That stuff happens. Don't not read a book over stuff like that. And Appendix C, discussion questions. Great book. Kind of like I said, his main presentation is mere eschatology. What is eschatology? It's honestly, it's probably the most popular topic. People love it. Eschatology is talk about end times. Christians love reading about it. I know several people that I'm acquainted with that honestly, eschatology is their favorite subject. They've done a Bible study with the book of Revelation with a group of people or whatnot. And my concern about it, and I like Ken's mere eschatology. I'll talk about my concerns in a little bit. So I don't want to give away too much. Again, I encourage people to buy the book. But he talks about some of the tricks of reading eschatology. He talks about different types of eschatology. We each have an individual eschatology. Our life will come to an end. There's an end time for you and me. There's been an end time for every human being that comes along, and then there's general eschatology. One of the things that's great about this book is at the end of each chapter, he has a book recommendations. For example, at the end of Christ's Kingdom Already Not Yet, that chapter, he says, for further introduction to eschatology, see George Eldon Ladd's book, The Last Things, and Donald Bloch, I don't know if I'm saying his name right, I've never heard his name said, book also entitled The Last Things. End Times Speculation, Chapter 2, and Theological Accountability. He warns about date setting and talks about some of the dangers of speculating that happens. And again, he's got at the end of the chapter for discussion of the numerous and unfortunate date setters and prophecy predictors through the years. See End Time Visions by Richard Abanis. He also brings up in that chapter his 5 points of theological or eschatological agreement. And I'll give away this part of the book, but I encourage you to read it. Where we all agree, the things we all agree on is 1, the second coming of Christ, 2, the resurrection of the dead, 3, the final judgment of humankind, 4, the eternal state, and 5, new creation. We often just focus right away on the things we disagree about, but we have so much common ground. And he develops those 5 points in his next chapter, Mere Christian Eschatology, Chapter 3. Great chapter. These are short chapters. 1, 2, 3, 4 pages for that in this little book, and then on the 5th page is just this book recommendation there for an introduction to general eschatology. Again, kind of like chapter 1, but this time he says the Bible in the Future by Anthony Hoekema, or Hoekema, not sure how you say it, and A Basic Guide to Eschatology by Millard Erickson. Now, I was fortunate with a lot of these books that he recommends. I have several of them, not all of them, but I did, I think, even maybe purchase 1 or 2 or 5 of his recommendations electronically through some of the things that are out there, that, like the Logos app. Chapter 4, 3 Theological Differences. Challenge 1, how to interpret the Bible's apocalyptic literature. Daniel and Revelation are a type of literature called apocalyptic. And there are some things we need to learn about how to read that kind of literature. The Bible's filled with different literature. It's filled with poetry. It's filled with historical narrative. It's filled with letters. You don't read poetry the same way you read historical narrative. And you don't read apocalyptic the same way you read historical narrative. Challenge 2 is the relationship between Israel and the church. Not every Christian agrees on that approach. And just because someone differs from you doesn't mean that they are outside the kingdom or they are a heretic. In chapter 3, challenge 3, the nature of the millennium. And at the end of that chapter, he recommends 3 books, because there's 3 main categories of views of the millennium. There's post-millennialism, premillennialism, and amillennialism, and he recommends a book for each category. Again, not taking a stance himself on it, but just talking about what those views are. Ken does so well. For a fair-minded discussion of the theological topics that contribute to eschatological differences between Christians, see A Case for Amillennialism by Kim Riddlebarger. The Case for Progressive Dispensationalism, that would be a pre-mill book by Robert Saucy. And Christ's Victorious Kingdom by John Jefferson Davis, who holds a post-millennial view. I don't have either the book by Saucy or Davis, but I do have other post-millennial and premillennial books. I do have Kim Riddlebarger's book. And then the next chapter, chapter 5, is Millennium Models, where he talks about these views. Premillennialism, I might be tripping over my tongue because these are long words. I know how to say them, but it divides into 2 categories: historic premillennialism and dispensational premillennialism. Now, dispensational premillennialism is the one we know most about in America. Postmillennialism and amillennialism. He gives a summary of each, and it's nice. What he does is he summarizes the view, and then he gives some support for each of the view, and then he gives a challenge or 2 for each of the views. He has a paragraph about what's challenging for each of the view. Again, not taking any particular position on any of it. And then he's got a nice blocked section right here that flops over onto the next page, where he gives, again, recommended books for each of the positions. Again, I've got postmillennial books, but not the ones he listed. I do have the Kim Riddlebarger book. Anthony Hoekema, Bible in the Future, is one I want to get. And his dispensational view, I actually don't have either of those books either. And then he's got a chapter on heaven and hell. And he discusses alternate views of the end. They're universalism, conditional immortality, annihilationism, purgatory. Recommends a book on that. It's just such a good book because of what it does. Ken shares the different views. In only a couple spots does he really give a hard critique on something. Most of it, he just presents it, kind of presents you some balls and strikes from each view. And that's a great thing. And this is why I recommend this book so much. If I go to wherever I can get books, my local Christian bookstore, my Walmarts, my Targets, Hobby Lobby has a kiosk for books at the beginning, or at the front of the store usually. Most of the books, first of all, almost all those places are going to have books on the end times. Why? Because they sell, honestly. It's just the truth. You can go to Walmart and Target and Hobby Lobby, and what you're not going to find is a good book on the Trinity or a book on Christology or anything like that. The only way you're going to get any books on the Nicene Creed or the Apostles' Creed, the only thing you're going to get at those stores where you might be able to get any info on that stuff is a good study Bible, if they sell a study Bible, such as the ESV Study Bible, for example. And when it comes to end times, when you go to those stores, there is only one view that you're going to find at those stores. And that is the dispensational premillennial view, the view that you find in Left Behind, the view that talks about, the view that talks about there's an Antichrist coming, a 7-year tribulation, a pre-tribulation rapture. And that issue that's a hot seller. Ken's got a nice bibliography at the end, and if I counted correctly, he recommends, he's got 36 different books in there. He brought this book to several people from different views for them to read it and review it and give them some critiques. And he took some of those critiques, as a good author does, incorporated it, and then said, but anything that's wrong in the book is his, to blame, just as any good author does. If you see any book by Ken, first of all, I didn't even talk about Ken in the beginning of this. If you see any book by Ken, get it. Ken will make you a better thinker. He'll make you a more balanced thinker. And Ken is very good at calling just fair balls and strikes on any issue I've ever read about from him. He's very fair. And that's a challenge. So many books, when they come out, they propose one view, they critique another. And so often when they are critiquing another view, they do what we call in logic a straw man. It's not really the best case. They pick the worst arguments or the worst examples from a view, or maybe not even a real view, proper representation at all. It could just be a butchered mess, which is what a straw man really is. It's a false representation of a view. I always encourage read the best of each view, and that's what Ken's bibliography does. He gets 36 books here or so, if I didn't miscount. And again, you know what the problem is? You're not going to find these at your Walmart or your Target or your Hobby Lobby. Not only that, you're not going to find most of them at your local Christian bookstore. Your local Christian bookstore is interested. I've never worked for them, but I think I can say safely, while looking at their shelves and what they carry, they are interested in sales. And one view sells, and that's the dispensational premillennial view. People are curious about if that view is the truth, what's going on with Israel in these days, because that's a key component in that view, tying things in the newspaper to that, and when is the rapture going to be. And I've been a Christian for about 40 years now, and I first read my first dispensational commentary when I was 16 years old in 1987, and there was a lot of hype then, a lot of excitement then about the rapture and is the Antichrist on the earth and all that. And it still is hot, and it sells today. I actually should just do a second video and talk about some of these eschatological views a little bit more, because I'm getting away from Ken's book here. But Ken's book, first of all, if you have never read a book on the end times, start here, because it's a fair and balanced approach, and he presents all the views, and he gives you great comments on all of it. Now, that probably doesn't describe anybody I'm talking to. You probably all have some sort of view on the end times. You've probably been through Revelation Bible studies. Depending on your church that you're at, your church may talk about it a lot. So if you have a view, I still say for your next book, get this book and read this book. Because one of the things that I see that's disturbing is because the one view dominates the bookshelf so much and dominates the movies and dominates discussion so much, is that when people are confronted with other views that Christians have held, and throughout the centuries, and actually throughout 2 millennia now, sometimes when you've only been exposed to the popular view in the United States anyway, the popular United States view that's in the stores, when people hear someone present, say, an amillennial view, the reaction is an overreaction, and people react in a shock that is almost as if that person with the amillennial view had denied the resurrection of Jesus, or denied that Jesus lived in the flesh, or denied that Jesus was God. And we need a broader education on eschatology. And Ken's book is a great place to start. It's a very short commitment. It's not an audio book. If you like audio and you don't like reading, feel free to reach out to me. I'll be glad to read it to you. But it can't take more than 2-3 hours tops to read this. It's a short read, and it will diversify your learning on eschatology. And I think that's something that all of us could use more, is a little diversification in our understanding of views that are out there in the end times, and views that actually at other times were the dominant views of the church. The view that is popular in the movies and at the bookstores today has not been the dominant one throughout history, though it dominates now. Fortunately, all of that stuff, none of that puts us outside the kingdom. Read it, and if nothing else, get down what mere Christian eschatology is. I hope you enjoyed the review. I hope you get the book. Have a good day.